This episode is brought to you by AWS. Amazon Q Business is the generative AI assistant that can securely understand your business data, summarize results, and streamline tasks. Learn what Amazon Q Business can do for you at aws.com/learn more.
Money decisions don't have to be either or. With Bank of America, they can be yes and. Like yes to sunny vacations and rainy day funds. Can our digital tools and guidance help you create the future you want? Yes. And help you keep enjoying today, too. Do more with a bank that asks, what would you like the power to do? Explore our tips and more at bankofamerica.com/yes and.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Back with another episode of The Blue Turf. This is Thad Bell from the KC Soccer Journal. With me, Eric Bergerud, amazing man with almost correct stats. How are you today, sir?
Hey, it's always great to be at the world-famous Kansas City Soccer Dome. What'd you call it? WFKCSD?
Something like that.
Something like that.
I was cheating off of Mike's team, formerly known as Swope Park Rangers.
That's nice. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
TFKSPR. All right. We are relatively fresh off of another Kansas City Comets win, 9-2. And it was, I will say, not even that tough of an affair for the Comets. What would you say?
Well, a couple things. Coming into the game, in my opinion, it was a must-win for Kansas City because the stakes have risen and the expectations have risen. And ultimately, and I'm going to be saying this episode after episode after episode, the Comets won a 1 or a 2 seed going into the playoffs. So some of these games absolutely must win, and this one was. To make this simple, Thad, Kansas City was playing its 4th game of the season. Dallas was playing its 1st, and You could see the difference right away.
That was a big difference. And don't get me wrong, Dallas has a lot of really good players. Comets had, I would say, the edge in talent on the field, but a lot of it did come down to Comets playing at home, Comets playing their 4th game, Dallas playing their 1st game. All of that came into play, but it seemed like, I don't want to say that players didn't take it seriously because they did, but it just seemed like they were having fun with it too, because I think there was more back heel passes in this game than all the rest of the season put together for the Comets.
Oh, definitely some highlight goals. There was a tic-tac-toe play that was 2 back heel passes leading to a Marquez goal, or he backheeled it in after a backheel pass. And so, no, they looked like a team that wanted to show their quality, and they did. That didn't mean they weren't taking it seriously, but they used that opportunity to show their quality. And if goalkeeper Parker Lackland hadn't made 20-something saves, the scoreline would have been even more stark.
Yeah, it's and plus I think they would like to show off for the home fans.
I think so too.
You're not going to get a chance to show off against Milwaukee probably, or San Diego, or some of those kind of teams when they come into town. But this was a little chance to maybe have a little flair for fun.
Well, and there's always, I'm sure that Coach Stokic still found areas where he thought they needed to get better. Defensively, I think they were fine, and Philip Ejimadu got the call-in goal. Another great showing for him, and he dropped his goals against average from a 3.5 to a 3.0, which you end a season at 3.0, and my rule is you should be league MVP. But these are the games that you need to win. You need to win comfortably, and you need to rebuild momentum, because coming off that loss at Milwaukee, they needed to reset where they are, and they have a schedule right now that is home game loaded on the front end, and those all need to be not only wins but regulation wins.
Yeah, they do not need to be dropping points and just getting them in the overtime. That's killed them in the past sometimes. Phillip does have 3 starts, 3 wins. Does that lead at all to the goalie controversy that is almost always out there?
Well, for Comets fans, there's a goalie controversy. I think that let me rephrase that. I'm gonna take a half a step back here. For some Comets fans,
right? Not everybody, but there is a controversy. Or if there's not a controversy, they have a preference in terms of who should be in goal. I think for Coach Stokic, he's said on multiple occasions that I have confidence in both goalkeepers. Yes.
We play the same regardless of who's in goal. And what most fans don't see is what's happening in practice here at the world-famous Kansas City Soccer Dome. Ultimately, Coach Stokic is in the best position, with the advice of Alan Mayer and Kenny Mayer, who's the hot hand, who's going to give us the better chance of winning. And regardless of who's in the net, in the box, who's outside the box, who throws it further, who's better with their feet, it's who's going to give the team the best chance or the better chance of winning should be who's selected.
I think that is a really large part of it, but I will throw out just another factor from my point of view. Phillip is still a young goalie in regards to indoor soccer. It's just his second season. We see that he's improved from when we were talking about how good of a shot stopper he was at the beginning of last season. We thought he would get some time throughout the season. He got a little bit. But now he's got 3 wins in his last 3 starts. I think it's that he's also started against team. The first 2 games, obviously Neto was a little bit knocked up, so had a knock. I shouldn't say he wasn't knocked up. But anyway, it was a chance for Phillip to start and get those games. But now it's going to be maybe picking the moments to start Phillip, that he gets experience. And I don't want to demean Dallas, because they're a good team. But it was again, I would have went into that game very confident the Comets would win that game. And you always have Neto on the bench anyway. But it was another chance for Phillip to get a start in a game that they should win.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And I think that for people who care about goalkeeper controversies, and there is a subset of Comets Nation that does, just wait until Comets play at San Diego next month, on the road at Chihuahua,
yep.
Chihuahua home. Then we'll see where Coach Stokic's head is for real, because
right.
Ultimately you're looking at teams that should be competing for the Ron Newman Cup, and that will tell you right away what the pecking order looks like.
And that's just why I pointed out those, because everything you said earlier was right, but I think there's just another factor of getting people time and experience so that you have a better chance in the future when you need to call upon them.
Sure.
I thought he played well. I don't think he was as challenged as he was against St. Louis those first 2 games.
No, I don't think so, too. And in fact, both teams decided to go for the younger goalkeeper, so Parker Lackland, who got some games last year for Dallas, and he made a ton of saves. And so the Comets had most of the possession, most of the action, more of the shots, and so Ejimadu had to come in on a couple saves, but some of the saves were fairly routine too.
All right, one of the things that we talked about, I think between the quarters or at some point, was just that you saw both Zach and Rian on the same line a lot in this game. I don't think they're out there every time, but they were together a lot, and it just caused fits for Dallas.
It absolutely caused fits, and so we saw flashes of that last season, but what's different this season is Junior Kazim back on the roster, and so you literally can have a combination of 4 forwards out there depending on the situation. Your prime targets being Zach and Rian, but also Christian Andreas and Junior Kazim, and we saw combinations of the 4. And interestingly or ironically, if you want to view right now Kazim and Andreas as defensive runners, it was a defensive runner who had 4 goals on the final score sheet. So it creates some mismatch possibilities, and it gives Coach Stokic some options in certain game situations. And if you're the opposing coach and you're watching game film, you don't know what to expect.
No, it could be any combination of those. It did feel like when Rian and Zach were out there, Rian was perhaps more of the target forward, and Zach was almost the playmaker underneath a lot, which we know he has that ability. But they were just having fun. We talked about this a little bit before. They were just having fun.
Well, and we've talked on the show before, I believe. If not, I've done this on air. Some teams defensively will man mark, meaning when they see player X on the field, they will pick the specific defender to match him on every shift. Other teams take a different approach in terms of we'll just match up who we match up. But if you're a team that very much picks we're going to put our best defender on Zach, or we're going to put our best defender on Rian, and they both come at the same time, then you have to figure out, what am I doing with my defensive lines? That creates some challenges for the opposing team.
Yeah, challenges in having the personnel to match up, and you may want to have different defenders. You may want to have the bigger, stronger guy against Rian, or a little slightly faster guy against Zach, but they wouldn't necessarily be together normally because you would expect them to be on different lines. So now, are you putting those 2 guys together if you're the opposing coach, who you would have matched up differently, and are they practicing together? It just creates lots of dilemma. I like that word, dilemma. And the opposing coach has to make those moves.
And then you have double defensive runners, or some combination of defensive runners, and look at the game that Christian Andreas had. And so we can talk a little bit. I'm sure you're ready to talk about his goals and what he kicked in versus what he got credited for. But in the end, his drive, his intensity I think it's fair to say, led to 4 goals on the score sheet for the Comets.
I always have had a fondness for the defensive runners because they put in so much work, and they get the rare goal sometimes. But, I mean, we don't know how many Christian will get throughout the rest of the year. We know he's talented enough to get a fair amount of them. But he's probably not going to have another 4-goal game. Of course, he was assisted by a little bit by Dallas. He kind of out-Tyu'd Frank in this game by being a beneficiary of a couple of own goals. But it was the work that did it.
It's absolutely the work that did it. And if we're going to have a broader discussion about whether quote-unquote own goals should count in indoor, then somebody needs to go find the VHS archives of Steve Jungle and Tattoo and a few other players like Hector Marinero and literally go through how many goals did they get credit for that were off of deflections, misplays, or whatever. And then we could have a real conversation. But it's always been the way it's been counted indoors. And so, for me, whether or not he kicked the ball on all 4, he absolutely caused all 4 to happen.
Yes.
And for me, that's all that matters.
Yeah, it's indoor soccer, hockey are both sports where you shoot, you make the play, and some good things happen when you make that play and you crash the net and all those things. Yes, you get own goals credited to you in outdoor, but you don't play for that as much as you play for it as indoors because it happens. It's a good strategy.
Well, and you put it so. The first one where Nestor Hernandez kicked it in, that was a lot of defensive work by Andreas to get past him, and Nestor just launched it. On the other one, it was a pass off the boards that ricocheted in, and we talked about Frank Tyu's 2 goals here a couple weeks ago, and both of them were off of deflections. One was on a pretty similar play, and so the King, gets credit for a lot of goals too.
Yes.
And so, I mean, ultimately, it's you put yourself and you put your team in a situation where you're going to get goals. Good things are going to happen.
I would kind of like to see that tracked, though, just for the comparison's sake.
Sure.
You know, if a player gets 15 goals in the season and 10 of them are own goals by the other team, do you rate them as highly as somebody who scored 15 outright? I mean, it's, you know, like outdoor with penalty kicks. You know, somebody has 7 penalty kicks and they score 10 goals. Do you count them as much as somebody who scores 10?
Oh, I think there's a lot of people who have that question about Cristiano Ronaldo in terms of,
Right.
they call him Pinaldo, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. There were people taking issue with Comets and league social media about Christian scoring 4 goals. I think if you framed it very differently, who deserved to be the first star? If any of those people said, well, 2 of those were own goals, so they shouldn't count, I would still say Christian Andreas,
Yes.
and I voted for him, right? There was no doubt who was the first star of that game, in my opinion. If somebody else has a different opinion, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, let us know. I had to leave at halftime, so all I saw live was the 2 goals that he was a beneficiary of. But I didn't walk out there going, man, Christian's just kind of having a so-so game. No, he was kicking some ass.
Yep, I think that's for sure, too, and that's what you want to see. And particularly Coach Stokic, since he played that role, he has a certain affinity for the minutes that the defensive runner has to put in, and so he has helped coach Andreas on how to succeed in that position and put him in a position, no pun intended, to create chances from the defensive runner role.
Who is the better defensive runner, Stokic or Andreas?
Aren't you interviewing Coach? Why don't you ask him that question and see what he says?
I will try to ask him that question today.
Say that Erik had a question for you, but he had to leave, and that way you give yourself some plausible deniability.
No, I'm an asshole enough. I'll actually ask those questions at times because it's fun to see somebody splutter a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't think he'll splutter, but yeah, I think it would be interesting to see what his reaction is. I will try to get him up here and ask that question. All right, let's see. Anything else to discuss from this game?
As of when we're recording this, no injury updates. We saw Marcel Berry go down hard in the second half, and we don't have an update on that. I have gotten questions. I know Comets social media has questions. As of Wednesday, nothing definitive to report. I think it's safe to say that Zach Reggett's going to be battling all season and won't be 100%, but that's what to be expected. And I totally anticipate seeing him out there for that St. Louis game on the 28th.
I would too, and it's a good thing that the Comets don't have a game for a little while. They don't have a game until the 28th. So you saw him a little bit in practice earlier. I don't know how much he's doing, how active he is, and they probably wouldn't want me to say exactly, but I know I saw him out there a little bit earlier. But it's a good chance to maybe give him a little rest and not push him too hard so he can heal whatever is ailing him, his ankle. Have seen Mikey Linus out there. Have not seen Marcel Berry, obviously, and Lucas Sosa. Have not seen him out there. He may have been out. I just haven't seen him.
Henry Ramirez was the other member of the Walking Wounded, and so good to get Mikey back. Mikey did come out for pregame warm-ups on Sunday, but it was clear he was not going to play. But just getting him back into game form is a good thing.
Yeah, he had minor concussion issue from Milwaukee, I guess. Yep. And I actually talked to him between the first and second quarter. I kind of took a lap around the arena and ran into him and some of his entourage. But just talked to him, and he said he could have played if he needed to, but there was absolutely no reason to risk that.
So, see, Thad, what did we talk about in a previous episode about you coming into the booth? You need to bring us that intel, and that way you could come in live and say, hey, this is Thad Bell. I have a Mikey Linus update for you. Hey, great.
I don't think Galazzo wants me in a booth. All right. Let's see. We've discussed the injuries. We've discussed Christian Andreas.
Hey, can we talk about one of your Casey Soccer Journal colleagues?
Please.
So the whole Juice Boxes game notes feature is something I've relied on as an announcer in recent years, and Mike Kuhn does a terrific job. And so he posted after Sunday's game updates, and he does a couple different things. He'll talk about this Comets 3, right? Comets franchise in terms of this goal ranks Zach Reggett wherever for this Comets franchise, so from 2010 on. But he also has a feature that is all-time Kansas City indoor soccer history. So Comets 1, Attack/Comets 2, and Comets 3, right?
Right.
So a pretty significant milestone hit on Sunday that Ramon Palmer tied the Rocket, Kim Rudved, for 16th in all-time appearances. And so what for me is significant about that is, think about when Rudved first played with the Comets, and they were playing a 48-game schedule, which increased into the 50s. Ramon Palmer has been playing in the 20s, and so he's been playing so many years, he's already caught up to Rudved, and so he'll top Rudved, knock on wood, that game against the Ambush coming up on the 28th. And the next person ahead of him is Tim Clark. So Tim Clark was a defensive mainstay back in the 80s, and so he's coming up in the echelon of all-time indoor history in Kansas City. So congrats to Ramon. The other thing that he has coming up is his next goal will be the 100th in all competitions for Kansas City. And so we've talked a lot about Ramon on this podcast, particularly his transition from captain last year to Nacho, and how that's actually improved his game. And we're seeing this here in 24-25. Had a terrific goal early on in the game against Dallas, and he's making great passes. He we called it on air, Nick Vassos and I did. There was an overlap run that he did, and you start thinking, there's all these young guys in their 20s that have speed, right? And here goes Ramon, who's maybe a little over than his 20s, who is really an integral part of that transition game. And so all I have are kudos for him.
Yeah, I totally agree. I have a couple years ago, I probably would have thought Ramon was pretty close to done. He was sometimes getting a lot of chances but not putting things in, and it just felt like nothing was going right for him. But yes, so much changed last year when he relinquished the armband to Nacho, and he just became like a whole new player. And I think so far this year, again, sample size is still relatively small, 4 games, three of those against teams that should be below him in standings for sure. But he has looked damn good.
Well, the other thing is he doesn't get a lot of the fanfare the way that Reggett, Marquez, to a certain extent Acosta get. He does his job, and the fact that he doesn't have to worry about anything else other than playing, I think he's elevated his game, and the Comets are the beneficiary of that.
I wonder, well, I know part of it is that he, like we said, he gave up the armband so he could focus on playing. But how much do you think is just the different style now that the Comets are playing under Coach Stokic?
Well, I think it's there too. I think that he's made for that transition game. He started it, if you think about his time with Vlatko Andonovski as coach, it's almost a back to the future opportunity for him. And so this is how he flourished early on in his Comets career, and this system just works for him. And I think that, again, we're seeing the fruits of that, and it's going to be interesting to see how his season progresses. And again, from the opponent's or the opposing coach's perspective, how do you plan for this team? Because there's so many options out there, and there's so many choices out there. You look at special teams for the Comets, and everybody out there can score a goal. You didn't used to always say that. Everybody out there can score a goal, and so it's a good problem for Coach Stokic to have in terms of having to make choices. We talked about that early on in goal. He has choices to make between Neto and Ejimadu, but at every line he has choices to make.
I was just watching while you were talking. Ramon actually had just set up a nice opportunity for Rian. Can't see exactly what happened over there. It didn't result in a goal, but just the passing, the way it worked. But then I was watching the subs as they were going, because they're playing just like it's a real game right now. Of course, I don't know if this referee is any better than the regular referees.
Oh, my goodness. Are we going to go down that road?
Not at the moment. But I was just going to say that I think this team is deep enough now that Ramon can play the amount of minutes that he needs to play, not more than he needs to play. And I think that also has been a factor for a few years. The team had relied really heavily on veterans playing a lot of minutes. And I think that wore on them throughout the season, where there's a lot of young guys out here who are going to do a lot of running and allow some of the older guys to maybe just be there when they need to be there.
So let me try a different way to say the same thing that you did.
Probably better.
No, it's just a different way to say this. So it used to be that the healthy scratches, you could predict who wasn't going to play. Now you're seeing guys who have had minutes as healthy scratches because there's so many. This roster is so deep at several positions that there will be rotation, which means that players like Ramon Palmer don't have to carry too much of a burden.
Well done. And again, I'm looking out here, and I would not be able to tell you who would be starting the next game if they were playing tomorrow. Just like going with what you said. It's, I believe Coach said before the last game that they had over 20 players play this first couple games. So it'd be interesting. Mike Kuhn needs to go count all that up for me.
He does. So the other somebody we didn't talk about today, but you've talked about in the past is Danny Mayhew. The flashes out there. He has absolute skill. It's just the final step, the final play. Once he figures out this indoor game, he has a lot of talent.
He does.
Now, we've said that about players that have come in and left, but you can see it out there with him.
Yeah, I am impressed by the skill that he shows out there. And I was just watching him about 45 seconds ago. I don't know if that's what triggered you to mention him. But
no, I can't even see. I'm being good. I'm not even looking at what's happening on the field.
I am that kid that sits in the back row of the classroom and watches everything and listens. I used to get in trouble for not watching.
Right.
I could hear it. That's what it's a verbal medium. Anyway, it's we have seen a lot of players, like you said, that come in and show those flashes of they're super talented, but they never connect the dots to become a good indoor player. So I'm not quite ready to say he's going to be a good indoor player, but yes, he's absolutely shown those flashes of you could see like, oh, he's going to make this move. He's hard to dispossess from the ball unless he just outright gets fouled and probably doesn't get a call. But he has that ability to control that ball. Making those different patterns that you're going to do in indoor hasn't come to him quite yet. I mean, you can see it at times. He has to pause and think, like, what do I need to do next? If that becomes a little more instinctive to him, he's going to become a really good player.
So before or after you tell our listeners how they can subscribe to KC Soccer Journal, can we end up with referees since you brought it into the conversation?
Oh, sure.
So how do you subscribe to KC Soccer Journal?
Go to kcsoccerjournal.com. We have Twitter. We have Instagram. We have a number of pods, this one included, the Blue Turf, Keeping Current with Kansas City, and Shades of Blue, and other ones that post there. So when you can subscribe, but it'll email you when we post an article.
So you brought up referee. So two observations I would like to pose here.
Actually, can I go? I want to go back and interrupt you for a second.
Interrupt me. It's your show. I'm just your guest.
No, we're co-hosts. I do what you want. You've been talking about Mike Kuhn's juice boxes.
Yeah.
He does stats on all the local teams. He does ones that will cover players that are from here, have played here, and with the professor, Brian Holland, gets a lot of kudos, very deservedly so, on his history for the indoor soccer game here. Mike has a slightly different look where he covers all soccer here, indoor, outdoor, and it's not to diminish what Brian Holland does because he's got an amazing wealth of stats and info. Mike has that across all the different versions of soccer.
Well, and speaking of Brian Holland, I slightly challenged him this morning when we the day we're recording this, he has strong opinions about Jan Goossens and Dale Mitchell needing to have their uniforms retired by the Comets. And my response to him was, what's the criteria for a jersey retirement?
Yeah.
Is it just how many goals you score, or is it longevity? Because we go back to he mentioned Run Fit too. We go back to playing careers. How many years do you have to play, no matter how good you were at your time, to deserve your jersey? And so I would encourage listeners to this podcast, go online. I was, at the time, a huge Jan Goossens fan. Jan Goossens is one of the greatest targets in Kansas City indoor soccer history. How many years was he here? That's just rhetorical. And so I would encourage Comets fans to do their research. And then if we need to have a broader conversation later about retiring jerseys, we absolutely can. For me, the next one that should be retired is number 14, but we'll see what we see.
Yeah, I don't think there is a cohesive plan on how to address jersey retirements at the moment for the current version of the Comets. The two that have been are two.
St. Louis has 3.
This year, Santa's bringing the power of Energizer into his workshop.
Whoa, the Energizer Bunny's got so much power.
Wait, he's powered up all the toys. I think that means we're done for the year.
I love this bunny.
He's the hardest working helper the North Pole has ever seen. And he wants all your gifts to have the power of the #1 longest lasting AA battery. So this holiday season, stock up on Santa's and the elves' favorite battery, Energizer Ultimate Lithium.
When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the vehicle owner's manual for important feature limitations and information.
So, you want to be a marketer. It's easy. You just have to score a ton of leads and figure out a way to turn them all into customers. Plus, manage a dozen channels, write a million blogs, and launch 100 campaigns all at once. When that's done, simply make your socials go viral and bring in record profits. No sweat. Okay, fine. It's a lot of sweat. But with HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools, launching benchmark-breaking campaigns is easier than ever. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
Deck your home with Blinds.com. Blinds.com. DIY or let us install. Blinds.com. Free design consultation. Free. Plus free samples and free shipping. Free.
Head to Blinds.com now for up to 40% off site-wide, plus a free professional measure. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Yeah, like they deserve it. But it's I would love to see a very like here's what is the stats that are needed, or a vote or something like that.
So without going too far, because I still want to talk about referees, I think that however you define it, longevity and impact matter. And so when you talk about Alan Mayer, he didn't play that many years here in Kansas City, but as a coach and as a player, impact and longevity. Gino Schiraldi, longevity on the field for sure.
Yeah.
And then commitment afterwards. Well, pizza too, but he was an announcer for a while, etc. So there. St. Louis, Slobo Ilievsky, Daryl Duran, Jamie Swanner, you have impact and longevity on all 3. So however you define the two, then I think you could go back into Kansas City and say, okay, who's had impact and longevity? And then I think you can make a case for over the 40-plus years of indoor soccer history, which players deserve that.
Yeah, and as for St. Louis, I totally agree with Slobo and Duran. I don't have anything against Swanner. I just don't have as much of an opinion on that.
Sure.
Little known fact is I probably played against Daryl Duran in like middle school.
That's serious. Wow. Yep, he was a great. Hey, refereeing. Okay.
Your favorite subject?
Yeah.
Not.
So two things I wanted to add. Since you were the one who raised refereeing earlier, one, this 3-referee system that is in place for the first 2 home games of everywhere except for the small fields.
Baltimore and Chihuahua.
From my opinion, the results are mixed. I think that there is still some hard feeling about how the 3-referee system worked at that game in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And I've had conversations off the record, on the record about that game. And so TBD what happens with the 3-referee system. But what's interesting is there was a 3-referee game in San Diego this past weekend, and which there were all sorts of situations where the referees had to figure out what are we going to do. But there was a Sockers fan in response to what he, and it was a he, perceived to be a non-call, who on social media this week made the statement that MASL referees are atrocious. And of course I felt like I had to weigh in on that in terms of as compared to what, because walk me through any league that you've followed in your soccer experience here in the United States, and that would be pro, amateur, indoor, outdoor, where the fans didn't say that the referees are atrocious. And so it's just a standard thing that fans say.
Yes.
Because I'm old enough to remember the Missile era, and I definitely remember the NPSL era, and fans were convinced that the refereeing was at the lowest level of all time. So somehow we have to move beyond making the referees responsible for, in people's opinions, for the outcomes of games, because you can argue about a call or not, whether it's subjective or objective, but really, at what point are the teams going to take responsibility for putting themselves in a position to win or not?
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but not 100%.
I know, because we got into this the last episode about the Milwaukee call changing the trajectory, and I get that, but really, you're going to go through teams in individual games and throughout the season are going to go through points. The Comets experienced this last year where things aren't going the way you want, and do you have the mental fortitude to overcome it? On individual games during the middle part of the stretch last year, the Comets didn't, but collectively at the end of the season they did, and they figured out we're going to play our game regardless of anything else. I just think there's too much of an attitude in this current league with fans, players, coaches, front offices alike, that the referees are out to get us, and we don't have any responsibility for how we perform in the game. And once you start thinking like that, things don't go the way you would like.
Right. So, again, I mostly agree with that. I do think that, if you're upset over a call and it lasts for any length of time, you need to address your mentality, your heart, your maturity, whatever other word you want to throw out there, intestinal fortitudes, whatever. But we, as fans, love games that are close because it's exciting. It goes a goal here, a goal there, whatever. And one bad call can affect that game because it's a close game. It's two teams that are very evenly matched. If, honestly, you can make 5 bad calls in this game against Dallas, and the Comets probably win that game, right? It's just the way it is. Again, not trying to demean Dallas. They're at a point that they're going to get better through the season. But against a Milwaukee or a San Diego, a bad call can totally change that game because it's 1 goal difference on a lot of those games, or 1 or 2 goals.
And I understand that, and I appreciate that. I'll go back to what I said last episode. If somebody had blown a whistle after that blue card, or after that blue card was raised and dropped, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. The game would have progressed. And so for me, it's not the goal taken away, is that the play should have stopped. If a blue card comes up and it shouldn't, play should have stopped right there, and then we move on.
Yeah, and again, that was a referee mistake.
Yeah.
And again, in all due respect to the majority of MASL referees, they are the highest referees in the country are reffing MLS games, and then NWSL games and USL games. And while we have one of the world's best, apparently, here in Kansas City that will ref in MASL, they have to bring in new referees, because as you get more games, you have to have more referees. And it's not just a 3 referee system. It's as you want to have more teams as across the entire country right now, indoor, outdoor, youth levels, MLS Next Pro, USL 2, all of these require more referees, and we need to keep improving them. So it's not wrong to criticize refs, it's just wrong to place too much emphasis on it, I would say.
So not for today, but maybe 4 or 6 months from now, Thad, particularly with Sporting Kansas City, watch social media on game days and see how many people right before the game will make comments about, oh, the referee who is coming in doesn't like us or traditionally has called games against us. And so there's, regardless of, quote unquote, the quality or the level of the league, there's still this mindset that an individual referee is going to change the trajectory of the game, right or wrong. And we see that in just about every league.
I think soccer is just one that you're going to see a mistake by a ref have a larger impact than like basketball. You get games that are 100 to 85. A couple blown calls probably doesn't change that game.
I think maybe next episode or when we get into January, I'd like maybe we focus a little time on video review, because for me, this is the bigger gray area than who's refereeing the game and what impact should video review have. And what I don't know, and I'm just making presumptions or assumptions about fans, are that fans want video review, but how video review is applied, that's open for all sorts of interpretation. And to tell me that the current system is better than no video review, that could be an interesting discussion.
It could. I know on the changing subjects, on the broadcast, you were discussing teams that had 3 brothers playing for them.
I did, and I almost got my 3 right, which was just going off of my memory bank.
So what did you find out?
So an intrepid.
I feel like this is one of those detective shows, like
it is.
What did you find out?
I'd given it up. So off the top of my head, when we were talking about the Romero brothers in Dallas, I'm like, I think maybe the Schmetzer brothers played in Cleveland, and the professor, Brian Holland, almost within 2 minutes messaged me and said, nope, Brian never played in Cleveland. What I came to find out this morning, to some intrepid fan in the Pacific Northwest said, per your broadcast, they actually played together in Tacoma in the MISL 88 to 90. And so I had the right brothers. I just didn't have the right city or the right era. Because I was thinking it was NPSL, but it was Missile, the original Missile.
Okay.
Yep. So who do you got?
Well, I just want to first of all say I'm impressed by even having you be that close, okay?
Well, hey.
I don't have a memory for that. So I do have an indoor team that had 3 brothers play for them. And I will say it's professional because it was in the name, I believe, of the league. But it was like the lowest level professional you could probably have. But the old PASL. There was a team in Kansas City, the Magic.
Okay.
Played for 1 year.
Yeah.
That started the year after the Comets, I believe. Had a few guys on it that were on the original Comets but got dropped or something like that. But there was 3 brothers, the Porter brothers. And I actually saw them play together because I went to a couple of their games. Randall, Brett, and Dan.
And where did they play? That'll be the next episode. You can.
Oh man, there was an indoor place down like 135th Street somewhere.
Okay.
It would be like playing here at the, it'd be like trying to play. I mean, there was enough seating for like 100 people.
Yeah, sure.
100, 200 people,
sure.
Maybe. Because I remember it was very entertaining when I asked when a person who was doing their media came over and asked the owner, well, how many people should I say the attendance is? And they looked at me and they looked at each other and they go, well, I know how many tickets we sold by how many $10 bills I have. And then they looked at me and they looked at each other and he goes, 100. And the media person goes, don't make it a round number.
Yeah, that's funny.
So again, that level of PSL was called Professional Arena Soccer League, but it was not that professional.
Yeah, it wasn't too hard to come up with brothers, like two brothers, but three, that's highly unusual. So
interesting fact on that is one of those brothers was the dad of a boy that played on my daughter's team. It was a co-ed, like they were 7 or whatever at the time. And one of them was the head coach, and one of them was the younger one who was actually pretty good. So I think one of the brothers only played 2 games, and I was at that one. So, all right, that was if that even counts.
The closest I could come to that, and I'm sure somebody could clarify when and where, but the De La Torre brothers, there's 3 of them, including Tony, who played with the Comets last year, who's now at Empire. But they might have, some number of them might have played together for the Kansas Bandits of MASL 2. Don't know if it was 2 or 3, but it's so rare that it definitely got our attention. And kudos to Sidekicks PR department. They flagged that for us in terms of pregame notes we should use on air. So there you go.
All right. Any last words?
No, other than a well-deserved break for the Comets. They're going to rest up, try to feel a little bit better, and we'll be back next week for a St. Louis ambush preview.
And we will hopefully have updates on health.
Updates on health, and we'll see how St. Louis does this weekend. They're hosting Dallas. I think that's a pivotal game for both. St. Louis right now is in the, if we keep losing, we're not even going to make the playoffs.
Yep.
Dallas is, okay, we got past Kansas City. This is a team we can compete against. Let's pull some points out of St. Louis and head back south.
Very true. All right, thank you for the time, and stick around. We may have an interview after this. I will always be trying. But until then, we are out. Back for another segment with me. I have Coach Stokic. How are you today, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Not bad. You feeling pretty good with another win in the books?
Yeah. It's always good to win. 9-2.
Is there really? What do you take from that game?
I take a lot of positives. I think when the game was going on, I felt like we could have done better in a lot of moments. But then when I rewatched the game, I felt we did a really good job of our pressure, intensity. Our transition was good, and our creativity in the offensive third. So I felt we accomplished our goal in that game, and I think we did really good. Now, you can take away Dallas is not there. I heard different comments. But to be honest with you, we didn't let them play. With our pressure and I think Dallas is a good team. I think Dallas has a lot of potential, a lot of good young players on that team. And again, it was their first game. This is our 4th game, so there's a little bit of that too. We took advantage of that. That's why we went right away high pressed because again, playing the first game of the season is not easy, especially with a team that played 4 games already. So we try to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, they were on the road. It was their first game. But at the same time, that's a team that can sometimes come out and surprise other teams.
Well, last year they beat Outlaws twice. I mean, I think there was one game that they beat them 7-6, and there was one game we beat them 10-4. Now, when they beat them 10-4, Outlaws were already 4th place. They played, different players. You can take that as well. But, again, they're still not a bad team, in my opinion.
And again, you can't let a team like that get out to a good start. Because
correct,
they might get momentum, and then it's hard. One thing I really noticed watching it, I only got to see half of it live, but then I watched the rest. I watched the entire game again last night. Was you mentioned creativity? I don't know that I have seen so many backheel passes in a single game, especially from this team. I mean, I think you had more in this game than probably the rest of the season put together so far.
Yeah, I mean, I'm. One of our principles is offensive third is being creativity. That's where I want them. Yes, we have a system.
Yeah.
We have a way we want to play in there, but at the same time, I want them to be creative. I want them to have fun as well. Be themselves, because every player is different, right? So I think in that game we achieved that creativity, and I was really happy with that.
Christian Andreos got the first star, 4 goals. Yeah, 2 of them were put in technically by the other team, but he created those opportunities. What was so good about him that day?
As first of all, I want to say this because, everybody is taken away from Chris because there were 2 own goals.
Yeah.
I mean, Frank Tayu, the last time they came here, he scored 3 goals and 2 of them were own goals, and they gave Tayu credit. So I'm gonna start there. You have to put yourself in the right places. It's indoor. And regardless if they're out own goals, he created those own goals. With his work ethic and his creativity. So, yes, there were 2 own goals, granted, but it was because of the things that he did. So, I think in that position as a defensive runner in that role, I'm glad that he can get rewarded sometimes because, I played that role for many, many years, and there's not an often opportunity to be rewarded, and he got rewarded a lot in this game. So
he did.
So, I think it's just his work ethic. He wants to score. He's hungry. He wants it, and he puts extra effort into it. So,
yeah, no, and like I said, I wasn't trying to diminish what he did because of the 2 own goals, because it's a lot of effort that goes into it and doing all the right things and all that stuff. And I even joked in the first segment that he out-Taiyu'd Frank.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, it's not just you in general, but just the comments and people talking, like, in general. I think, we have to give them credit for it, regardless of if they're own goals or not. Because I felt like, the last time they were here, everybody was giving Tayu credit to extents. And then when he does it, it's like, no, he created those moments. So, if he doesn't create those moments, those are not goals.
I think I stayed consistent because I kind of gave Tayu crap for only getting own goals. But yeah, again, indoor is a game where you get own goals, because a lot of those, because it's like hockey. You throw the puck at the net, you throw the ball into the right spot, rebounds, things happen.
Correct.
But it's creating your own luck in that spot, and that's what really deserves that credit, is not the luck but the work to get it to that right spot.
Correct.
And Christian has come so far in the last, I don't know how many years now, that he's become a defensive runner. But I'm just curious, as a defensive runner, who's better, Christian or you?
I made this comment. I made this comment last year when I took over the team. It was actually me and Vlatko that had the conversation.
Yep.
And I told Vlatko he has potential of being a better version of me. And Vlatko joked, he's like, I would take you right now. And I'm like, I appreciate it, but this kid has potential and he's growing. Like, he's, I think, he can be a much better version of me, or that I was.
Slightly better hair.
Yes.
4 games in, 3 regulation wins, 1 overtime loss. Still gets points out of it on the road against a rival team. How are you assessing how you guys are doing? How are you doing 4 games into the season?
I think, again, if you get to choose in the beginning of the season, if you ask me if I can be 4-1, or be, 3-2 or 2-3 or 1-3, I would of course choose to be 4-1, right? I think the game in Milwaukee, there's a thing that I say, there's a way to win and there's a way to lose, kind of gracefully or respectfully, right? And I felt like in that game we did it to ourselves. We had them where we wanted them, and then we kind of put them back in the game. And when you do that, anything and everything can happen, right? So to be honest, I'm happy, but I still think we could do better in any of the games that we played. So I'm happy, and we're going to keep working harder to get better and better by each game.
So you have almost 2 weeks off before you play St. Louis and back here. But what do you work on in that time? I mean, have you identified things like that you can talk about that you have to work on, or is it just continuing to get a little bit better?
So we had staff meetings the last couple of days. We're always looking and getting data from the last game, and where we can improve, right? If that's offensively, defensively, our pressure, our possession. There's 4 moments, right? Defense, offense. And then transitional side of it, from defense to offense, from offense to defense. And I think, we look at those 4 moments and we look at it and see how we can get better. And, because again, every game, in the beginning of the season, your job is to get better and better by each game. So when crunch time comes, that you're ready and prepared for it. And that's what we're doing right now.
In this last game, we saw Zach and Rian out there, I think, a lot together, probably more than we have the rest of the season. How did that work out?
We felt like it went good. A little bit off on the timing at moments because, again, to be honest with you, we haven't worked much at practice, if any. So, to be honest, for the role and what we wanted to achieve, they did it. And I think with time, if we continue or if we change it up, I think it can be better and better.
It seemed to throw Dallas off a little bit, having those guys like they didn't know which defender was supposed to be with which, and it seemed like Zach was a little bit more of a playmaker. I mean, he normally gets a lot of assists anyway, but it seems like he was a little bit more of a playmaker even in that role. Is that something you might pull out again, or? I
don't know. We felt like in this game that's something that we wanted to do, and we achieved it. I think Zach is unbelievable player. I mean, we all know Zach. There's not much to say about him. Everybody knows him. The thing that helps him a lot with the midfield is the futsal side of it, right? So he's done it, and he's very versatile when it comes down to that, right? Understanding of the target and being in the midfield. So for him, it's easy to adjust. I think if we kept doing that, or we keep doing that, it would just get better and better and more flow and all that stuff. But we'll see if we continue or not.
You had one line with Rian and Zach, and then another line out there that seemed to have a different group. Do you decide which group goes out based upon the other, whoever the opponent is, or what line they have out there, or is it more?
Not so much. I mean, once you get into there is times we do that, but I think right now is just having those two on the same time was more important to us than who it was,
right?
Because we like to pressure, and having those two guys pressuring is kind of like a pressuring line, if you want to put it that way. But I think right now it's not who it's against; it's more of getting them our right personnel, players on the field, to achieve what we want to achieve.
To have the right mix on that particular line for
Correct.
you guys.
Correct.
I also I know there's been some injuries. I know Zach's been kind of nursing an ankle thing. How is he doing?
He's doing well. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, the way that the season started and when he got injured, I didn't think he was going to play much in the beginning. He's a competitor. He's very strong. He wants to play. He wants to. And that's just his mentality. That's what makes him different, from everybody else, from different players. But to be honest with you, I'm not going to say surprised, but I'm proud of him of going through that, because as players you have to play sometimes injured, right?
Right.
And I think he was, a lot more injured than people thought he was. They think he was, but he was injured. I mean, he played the first 2 games with an ankle that was, it was a big ankle, and I was like, he came up to me, we had a meeting, and he wanted to play. Like, he's like, I want to play. And I was like, okay, let's see what you got. And again, he performed.
He's hard to keep off the field, isn't he?
Correct.
He might fight you if you don't let him play.
I think that would be a fight.
How's everybody else? I mean, I know Marcel went down in that game.
As a player, and especially in indoor, you're gonna have a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
We're hoping that it's not a season-ending injury. We're doing an MRI actually today, but as of now, with what the doctors have said, it doesn't look good. But I don't want to say anything until it's confirmed.
Okay.
Until you get an MRI. But they think that his Achilles is gone, and now if it's a sad moment, because I know as a player when that happened to me, it was very, really hard, and we're saddened with that. But at the end of the day, he's gonna come back even stronger, and I felt, the other thing too, I just felt like Barry started getting into his groove, into the system. He's a great kid. He's very quiet though, but very coachable, and he fit really well into our system, and I felt like he was just getting started. But again, reset. If it's the bad news, then he could come back. We work on him even harder. Come back next season. If it's not that serious, then we get him recovered and get him back in the lineup.
How about I saw Mikey Linus out there in practice today. I don't want to give anything away if you weren't wanting to say that, so I apologize. But I saw him in warm-ups even the other night, but he didn't play. Sounded like you were just making getting him back in the groove and then not wanting to risk him. So I assume he should be available for the next game.
Yeah, he was cleared the last game, but he didn't train much the week before. So we didn't want to risk it. Right. To be honest, we don't want to, if any injury, but especially with the concussion, we didn't want to risk losing him for a longer period of time. So he warmed up with the guys just to get a little bit of sweat, kind of get into it. And then, we made the decision of keeping him off the field for now. But he's cleared, and, this would be his first full week after his injury.
And then Lucas Sosa?
Yeah, so Lucas Sosa is we're taking, I think, a little bit of extra precaution with that because he's been an issue with him even last season, and then starting this season. So we want him to kind of fully recover. He probably could have played if we really wanted to, but we're really taking it slow just to make sure that we have him for the long stretch as well.
And I think Henry's the last one, or maybe.
Yeah. Henry is cleared to slowly progress into practice.
Good.
So again, that's another player that we're trying to slowly into it because again, same injury from last year. We lost him in the middle of the season. Then he came back for playoffs. All those players have an impact for us. So if we can keep them healthy as much as possible and have them at the big moments, that's going to be very important for us.
One difference it feels like is this year, last year also, but this year I think more so, is that you just have the depth that when you have a couple injuries, the team isn't greatly harmed. I mean, they obviously you want everybody available so you can have different looks and different combinations and such like, but you have the depth to keep playing and playing well.
Well, yeah, I think that's one of the things that we took from last year, especially in the finals, we felt like, having depth, even in playoffs, because, we didn't have the depth. I mean, we played players because kind of we had to. Now, the players that did it, they did well. So, right. Yeah, but I think having depth would give us a little bit of an advantage as well because Chihuahua had depth, and I think that played into their favor as well a little bit. But I think this year, one of the things that we wanted to have depth. And not only do we have depth itself, is we have depth in young kids with talent. So, I think I said this last week in your podcast, is that, we rotated 20 players within our roster already in the first 4 games. That's, we're as a coaching staff, we're proud of that. We're happy that we've been able to done that because now the new players that came in, they had a taste of it. Now they know what's really about. So now they can focus and whatever we tell them now, they're like, oh, now we know why he's saying this, or this is why he's, always on me for that. So there's pros and, again, there's a lot more pros than cons to it. But I think, we're a little bit more, we have a little bit more depth, but we have a lot more teaching to do as well within that depth. And I think we have the time to build that because remember in March is a big month for us. And hopefully by then we kind of have known where we're at in playoffs or a playoff spot where we're at, hopefully. And that way we can kind of, again, get different players more playing time. Because again, we think we travel out of the 8 games in March, we travel 6 of them. And I think 2 of them were like road trips as well.
Yeah.
If I'm correct. So like we're trying to, and I think we get back on the last 2 games is a road trip. We get back, we're trying to look into get back that same day and that night get in. And then we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I think we travel Thursday. Or if it Wednesday, we're still working on it. So my thing is, you're going off another big weekend and now you're playing playoffs. Having fresh legs would be an advantage in my opinion. And so we're trying to build up to that so that we can manage that. That's the goal.
Well, right now it looks like you have the depth to do a lot of rotation for that, and again, different skill sets, different abilities. Another not young guy, but new guy to the team, Danny Malhu.
Yes.
I always
close
struggle.
enough.
Yeah, Danny.
I don't even try it. I just say Danny.
Yeah, I usually just pick one name and go with that. So anyway, Danny. I keep seeing these flashes of, I won't say brilliance, but just quality, but you can still see that he's still trying to figure the game out. And I'm not expecting a whole lot more at this point. So it takes some players a year to figure out the indoor game. But with somebody with his quality, how do you think he's progressing towards being a regular contributor, I guess?
So yeah, when Danny came in to try out, we saw little things that were, the guy was already playing back post passes after the second training, right? So he realized in watching. So he's very smart. I mean, the guy has played in Chile, first division, second, and third division. He's a quality player. I think for us personally, I think it was a little bit, I would say unfair, but I think we baptized him in a game against Milwaukee where we probably shouldn't have. But I wanted to do that because, he's a quality player. I wanted him to see what kind of a playoff game looks like. What does that look like? And then you watch him against Dallas and you see great moments. And I think he should have had a goal because, that shot that he took, he scores every time in practice, right? But I think, I'm hoping I kind of gave a timeline of a month. But again, like you said, every player takes depending of it, maybe a whole season, a year, but I think him as a player, he has potential being a good player in the indoor game. So how long is it going to take? Hopefully not too long.
No, hopefully not. I was just curious because you see him on a daily basis where I only get a little flashes of it. But even out here in practice, I see a ball come to him and he'll just take a move to separate himself or get into a good spot, and he seems very hard to dispossess the ball unless somebody actually outright fouls him, and you might get a call out of that. But I just like watching how he's got to figure the game out. There's like that slight hesitation of what do I do here?
Correct.
Where once he's got it down, he's going to be
correct.
He has the potential because I don't want to predict it.
So you're spot on. He's overthinking it because of those things. Once he feels comfortable, it's going to be a lot more easier to be himself and do what he does.
Understand where other people are going to be. All of that comes into play.
Correct.
All right. I already asked you what you're working on, but do you get a little time off here for the holidays?
I think we're all going to get some time off. I think it's been I would say, not long, but it's been a tough, month and a half, 2 months. When you cut on preseason, I've been extra hard on the boys because the expectations are higher now. And I think it's good for us to take a little break mentally, not just, mostly physically from injuries, but mostly mentally, and enjoy time with family and friends. So we're going to all, from players to coaching staff, we're going to take a break.
Cool. I will let you go, but I will try to catch up with you next week to see how things are going in preparation for a pair of games against the Ambush again.
Yes.
You're going to get tired of seeing them early?
I'm going to be honest with you. I've played against them, I've coached against them, and, it's just, it is what it is, and we keep going.
Appreciate the time, Coach.
Yep, thank you.
We're out.